Hey everybody, welcome to the channel today. So I'm just getting our web chat started here so that I can give you updates on some new tech that I'm using, namely the a Stream Deck controller. And you can see when I push my little button there, it flips me over to using this new technology. And it's kind of a game changer in terms of doing some of the kind of the fast stuff in Dorico, or maybe I should say the slow stuff going a lot faster in Dorico, which is this stream controller here. The one I have is by Soomfon, or I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but this process works really similar kind of no matter what brand you're using. So if you are enjoying the video, go ahead and check out the links there just so you can see what it is. Again, I'm not trying to necessarily sell you on this one in particular, but I do think it works pretty darn well. So make sure you ask questions, but I'm going to kind of run you through some basics on how to set it up and how to do the different parts, specifically for using in Dorico Pro, because that's what I'm primarily use this for, but it does work with other aspects of your computer. So without further ado, let's kind of dive into this thing. So the stream controller, basically what it does is it allows me to change things up. So if I hit this button here, I can go to the screen view. So now you're seeing like my whole desktop as well as my face. I can hit over here, and now I am using just my face, right? And so you can see that. And then down here, I can go back to seeing the setup tab for the device itself. And like I said, it's really darn handy. I've really enjoyed using this thing, and it really has sped me up in certain aspects of using programs like Dorico, because you can program in long chains of things. For example, here in my Dorico tab, you can see on this page, I set up a thing for highlighting chord progressions when I'm highlighting notes, because that takes kind of several keystrokes to do, as well as I have one here for filtering out just dynamics, which to me, again, is a little more complicated than it should be to just highlight those things in Dorico when you want to copy them. So this is kind of a really great way of doing that, and because it just one button and boom, there we go. So some people were asking me after my last video that you can check out on the channel where I was kind of introducing this thing, how they go about programming the different parts of it. So I really wanted to walk you through that today. That's kind of my goal. And I'm going to do it into the guise of Dorico, but you can see over here, I have plugins for lots of different software applications. Plus you can make customized ones using the toolbox here, because basically what this device does is it pretends it's a keyboard. And so at the end of the day, what it's actually doing is pretending that it's a keyboard, which means that anything that has a key command, you can program in there, which I think is just stupendously handy. So let's kind of dive into this thing. So there's a couple of different scenes here, or excuse me, sections here in the application. And one thing I do want to kind of recognize for everybody watching is whether you have the Elgato version or the Soomfon, all of this process is pretty darn similar. I just chose this one because I hate to say it was pretty darn inexpensive, and there was a big part of me that was like, wow, I want to kind of tiptoe into this and make sure I really like it before I spend like $200, because this device here was about 50 bucks, and I really like the encoder knobs here. I think they work really well, and they have a lot of great functionality in different applications. As well as the programmable buttons. And then I have these other buttons here that I use for scene changes, because you can see here as I go like this, it'll scroll through my different scenes for me, from Dorico down to Meld, etc., etc. And then I have these different pages that I can choose. So if I go like this, see, it'll go back and forth between my different scenes. And so I kind of have set up that standardization. But let's go ahead and check out another thing here. So I'm going to go back to my screen share so you can see everything. And so here in Dorico, the way this works is when I set this to my Dorico mode, let me go back to that here. Oops, there it was. I saw it. Boop, boop, there it is. Okay, so in my Dorico mode, what I did is I set my encoders to do different things. You can see this first one moves the playhead back and forth. And then I also have this one that'll zoom in and out, which is kind of a handy feature because I can kind of zero in on a measure I want to look at and then zoom really quickly. And then the last one I actually programmed to lengthen notes. So you can see I can go back and forth like that, and I can make notes longer and shorter. So let me show you how I got to all of those things. I'm going to just kind of flip back over here, and I'll go back to this scene so you can see it a little easier. Excuse me. There we go. All right. Just checking my chat bar there, just making sure nobody has any serious questions. So here, when I'm working in the settings tab of the application, the first thing that we're going to need to do for making a setting is I'm going to make a new page. And so over here, these are the different applications. These are called scenes, and then you have this plus or minus. So if you want to add a new application, all you would do is just create a scene, and it calls it default scene, but we can change that name by going under this little gear here, and then you go under scenes, and then from there, it allows you to change the name. And then, but I'm going to go back over here to my predefined Dorico one, which when I'm done here today, I'm hopefully going to be able to export this scene set for you so you can download it and try it out if you buy this device for yourself. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a new scene. And for this demonstration, I'm actually going to create a blank one. You can right-click and copy and paste and create new ones yourself like that. But in this case, what I want to do is I actually want to make a brand new one so you can see all the different steps. So now I have a blank scene. See, all the buttons are completely blank. Nothing is assigned to anything. And you can see there in the controller, there's no pictures anymore, which means it's not going to do anything. No matter what I touch there, there's nothing going on inside of the device. So the first thing we want to do is we want to choose what we want all of these different buttons and encoders to do. And programming them is really simple. The buttons have only one parameter, which is to push. So when you push it, it's going to execute the action. But when it comes to the encoders, they have three different options. They have turning, clockwise, counterclockwise, and then they have the tap where you push it down. And they are tactile buttons. And they're actually pretty decent buttons on this one. I actually find all the buttons to work pretty darn well. I've been really happy with them so far. And again, for the price of the item, kind of tiptoeing into this new device set, I thought it worked really pretty well. I'm kind of curious to compare it to the Elgato, and I might actually think about getting one of those. But at least for today, I'm pretty happy with this one. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to decide what I want this to do. And so for right now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to set up my encoder knob here, the big one, to be zoom in Dorico. Now, I already have the zoom one set down here, so I could leave that. But in this particular brand new one, I'm going to make this brand new. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight it, and you can see it gives us these different options to do. It has the hotkey, knob operation group, and then it has these predefined ones like volume if you wanted to set that for your computer. And then there's also these other ones for this operational flow. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do the knob operation group. And what this does is you can see it brings up a little menu. Actually, I take that back. I'm going to do just the hotkey one because that one has one too many steps there. There we go, hotkey, perfect. And so from here, it gives us three options. This is the rotate counterclockwise, rotate clockwise, and then press, which makes it go to a predefined thing. So the first step I need to do, and this is where I'm actually going to go back here to my meld, so I can go to my screen share. Boop, there you go. Now you guys can see my whole screen. And what I first do is I go to my Dorico screen, and then I want to figure out what the hotkeys are I need to copy. So in this case, what I want to do is I want to program, like I said, the zoom function. So in Dorico, under the View menu, you can see there's these zoom commands. And if you go there, you'll see the predefined hotkey is actually right there. And you can see if zooming in is going to be Command equal on a Mac, and zoom out is going to be Command minus. Now, obviously, it's going to be Control this and that on the PC. And then I also have this one down here that I want to memorize, which is Option Command 0, which is zoom out to the full page. And so I'm going to actually set that one to be my press button. So now that I know what those are, I'm going to go back over here to my settings tab, and I'm going to click on my page for Dorico. And then I'm going to click back on my encoder button. And then I'm just going to call this one zoom, and you can see it actually puts the little label down there on the button. Now, on the regular buttons, you'd actually see that text type out, but the encoder knob is actually not a screen, so there's nothing to display there per se. But then I'm going to go here to my counterclockwise, which to me is going to be zoom out. That's the way my brain works. So I'm going to go ahead and click there, and then I'll hold down Command and hit the minus. And then the rotate clockwise is going to be the zoom in, so I'm going to hold down Command and hit equal. And then for that press, that was going to be that whole page view. So that was Option Command 0. So now if I go back to Dorico, you can see when I twist the knob on this page, it will zoom in, it'll zoom out, and then if I press, now it'll go to that full page view. And again, like, that's why I really like this thing, because this is something that to me takes a lot of hands to do and that kind of thing. It speeds me up so much. And so I really find this one to be kind of an amazingly quick and handy thing. So let's try another one. Let's encode our encoder knob to go ahead and move our playhead back and forth. Now in this one, it's kind of weird, but if you were to use a keyboard, I'm going to put this over here so that if I go back over to this scene, there we go, meld. So if I go back over to this scene here, you can see that, excuse me, if I hold up my numpad here in the way, in Dorico, oops, I didn't actually go to the scene. There we go. So if I go back to this scene here, you can see that my numpad actually makes it so that if I click these two buttons here, that actually is what moves your playhead. That's the hotkey for moving your playhead. And so I'm going to go ahead and set those as my hotkeys. And there is a specific one for numpad versus the regular plus and minus, which would be up over here. So just remember that that is a different setup. So I'm going to go back down to my settings here, and I'm going to go back to my Dorico scene, and then I'm going to do that for this setting right, or this encoder knob right here, and I'm going to set this to hotkey, and I'm going to drag it over, and I'm going to call this play. And then for counterclockwise, I'm going to make this the numpad minus, and you can actually click on this little drop-down arrow. So if you don't have a numpad that's literally on your keyboard, but you know that's where the hotkey is, see, I can actually get to it over here, which I'm going to set for my numpad plus, which is the clockwise, which is going to be moving right. And then the press, I'm actually going to make that the space bar so that it'll actually play back the song. So if I go back over here to Dorico, again, I'm going to go to my screen share. Boop, there we go. So I'm going to go back over here to Dorico, and then now you can see if I move down my scenes, oops, I need to go back over here because I programmed this one so that it doesn't have this. Dorico, there we go. I'm actually going to delete this scene out because I don't want it right now. So there we go. We're going to go back to Dorico. I'm going to have this one up. And then I'm going to go here, and you can see now when I twist my knob, oh no. Let's see. Numpad plus, numpad minus, and space. Let's try that again. There we go. Huh. Why is my encoder knob not participating? Let's see. Let me try this again. Minus, plus. It is not doing what I want. Let's see. I already had this predefined on this one. Oh, that's right. So I was having a little trouble with this particular setup command, and Dorico gave me a backup set, and you can see I looked that up online, but you can see that playback is F8, rotate, the moving the playhead forward is F9 and F7. So I just needed to use a different hotkey set because this one just wasn't functioning correctly. So I'm going to go here under my F keys, and so this one was going to be the F7, this one was the F9, and then I set this one to F8, which was play, and now you can see when I go back to Dorico, now it's participating. Again, sometimes it's hard to know why certain hotkeys don't work, but that's why you want to do a little bit of homework when you're programming these things, because basically you just need to find a key command that Dorico will follow. And that way you, again, because see, I can hit the play, and it just works. I have my zoom command set up, and that just works. And then again, I can zoom out like that. Okay. So now that I've got those two encoder knobs done, let's go ahead and do some actual buttons. So one handy feature here is if I go back here, I can actually copy over these default button sets that I basically put on all of them. And what this does is this button in the middle allows me to go to my next scene, which is the different applications. So if I go ahead and I highlight that and I just hit copy and then go over here and then I can paste. And so now I can do this so that when I've copied and pasted these buttons over, you can see that I actually have the ability now to scroll through my different menu sets. And this is obviously something that I feel like you kind of need on all of these. And I like to be able to go through the different programs because that way I can just kind of quickly click through and I can get to different aspects of the stuff I'm working on. So if I want to go back and meld and flip over to just my face, as you can see here, that's what that does. But then when I want to go over to the screen share again, now I'm on the screen share, and then I can scroll through and get back over to my Dorico. And so that's really, really handy to set up those buttons that way. So let's go ahead and program one of these like regular buttons. So for this first one, what I want to do is I want to put in a long string command because there's a whole bunch of these sort of things in Dorico that take several steps. You can't just do it in one step. And so this is a really, really handy thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a string that's going to highlight just the top note of a set of chords, like in a piano part, for example. Okay, so right here I have all of these different flute and clarinet parts, but I also have these piano notes here. So let's say I want to select just the top note of these piano chords. So first I need to do is I need to make sure that I have, I know what it is that I'm trying to do. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight these, and then I'm going to go under the filter, under edit, and I'm going to figure out what my text is going to be. And so from here, I'm going to go in and I'm going to go down to the filter, and then you'll see that I have these options for notes and chords. I have grace notes, I have notes by pitches, which is what I want, and you can see there's specific pitches, meaning I could have done like just C's, but what I want is I want to do notes and chords, and I want to do top note or single note, because again, I wanted to do the top note of my chord. And so the reason I needed to do that is because I need to go under and I need to figure out what the typing command is for this. Because you can see if I go back to notes and chords, see there's not a predefined hotkey for this, but what I can do is I can access this through the jump menu. So if I was to hit the J key and then start typing filter, and then I can do top notes or single notes. And you can see this is what I need Dorico to type. Now, to be clear, when you're programming this in your Stream Deck, you don't actually have to have the entire string, but I find sometimes it's nice to know exactly what it's going to be. And so that's why I'm actually typing it out this way. And I'm actually going to highlight it, copy it, so I can just paste it in. And then you hit enter, and you can see there. So that is my starting point. So I'm going to go back over here to my meld. I'm going to go to this view so you can see this a little better. Okay, so I'm going to go to this button here, and I'm going to predefine that. And because this is multiple actions, this is where I need to go down to my operations flow. And these flows are the ones where it's going to do several things at once. Now, you have three different options. You have the action flow, which is like step, step, step. You have the carousel, which is a little bit different, and then the action toggle. And you can see this is single step between plugins, and then this one is automatically switch between plugin and modules, and this one's perform several actions. And so that's what we really want here. So I'm going to drag this over, And so now that I've dragged it onto a button, I'm going to call this top note. And you can see there on the button itself, it actually now has an animation and it says the text there. It's kind of small, I'm sure, on your screen, but it does actually say top note. So you have a limited number of characters, but it's nice to see it's there. Now, you don't want to set the loop because this is something where we do not want it to keep going. We want it to do this action once and be done. And so that's what we don't want, this open loop thing. So then I need to click this little arrow here, and that brings me to the flow. And for this, basically what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do just a bunch of hotkeys. So I'm going to go under my toolbox, and then I'm going to do a hotkey. And this hotkey is going to be the jump menu. And I'm just going to call it jump menu so I remember what it is that I'm doing. And that's the J key on your keyboard. And that's about all you need to do there. Now this delay here, the milliseconds, it's pretty important to have a delay because certain processes actually take a little time for the computer to digest. And if you were to set this to 0 for everything, there's a possibility that the computer won't have brought up the menu you needed before it started the next step. So it is pretty important to have some kind of delay here, but I am going to reduce it. I'm actually just going to set it to 100 milliseconds because the jump menu comes up almost instantaneously when you hit the J key. And then what I need to do is I need to bring over this text command. And the text command is where I'm actually going to paste in that text. And it's very, very important that you actually type in exactly what it is that you want Dorico to type into the menu, the jump menu. And so that's where you imagine you hit jump, and then you started typing filter top note. And so then I want to go ahead and also put in this thing here where it says press the enter key after sending the message, which is after it's done typing that in, it just automatically hits the enter key for me, which will execute the command in this case. I could also use this copy and paste, which basically just would paste it in. It's almost like hitting Command V on the computer. But in this case, it works really well, and I like to not kind of confuse the issue, if you will, because I don't want it to overwrite my copy and paste clipboard if I can help it. I'm also going to slow down the delay there to 100 milliseconds. And so now I have created a flow. And in this case, this is all I need. So I go back, and you can see if I go into Dorico and I highlight all of this, and then I hit my new button, you can see it ran through. And you saw the jump menu. It happened really, really fast. But it entered in the text, and now it set that up. And you can see I have some others. I have already pre-programmed a couple of other buttons. So you can see here, I've pre-programmed this one for all dynamics. And when I hit it, it runs through the process and it'll do dynamics. And then this last one on this previous page here was chord symbols. So I do this and it's going to add chord symbols to my selection. Oops, looks like I overwrote that one. So let's go back and change that one. So on this button, add chord in my Dorico menu. Oops. Oh, yeah. Yeah, somebody was talking about this one. It's really handy. And like I said, if you want to support the channel a little bit, I realized I probably need to go over to my full screen share here so you guys can see what's going on. But somebody was asking in the comments about it. And if you really want to support the channel, in the links down below, you can see there's actually, I have an affiliate link for this company. If you're going to buy one of these from Amazon, it just helps out the channel a little bit if you want to pick one up. I'm not necessarily trying to sell you on this brand, but to me, the thing that's so awesome about it is compared to the Stream Deck, the one made by Elgato, which is kind of the flagship one, $50 I can afford to own this thing. $200, a little much. So anyway, getting back to it though, I'm going to go back to my settings here. Okay, so as I was saying, I had accidentally overwritten this button here, this add chord. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to change up that flow. And any of these buttons, if you want to change them at any point, as long as you're in this settings tab, all you have to do is click on the button and then go down to the settings tab, and then you can change it out. So you can see what I did here is under text, I had just accidentally changed out the text a little bit. And so now if we go back, let me just go ahead and highlight this. Again, we're going to hit that add chord. Boop. There we go. Now it's working properly again. So, yeah. So, does anybody who's watching, do you have any more setup questions? The other thing, actually, I guess I'll say one other thing real quickly, is when you go in this settings here on the setup, one of the things you want to make sure is when you're assigning your different pages over here under scenes, you'll want to pick, like for meld, see how I set the app to meld? And that way what it is when I switch between different applications, it'll actually send the device over. So if I go over here and I highlight meld, it'll actually make it so that it'll move the device over to that application. But I do realize you have to have this window closed for that to work. So I apologize about that. But the other thing that's kind of cool about this, though, is if you set up these applications, it also makes it so the buttons won't try and do, like, for example, my Dorico scene, that, again, I have Dorico set. This one types text and stuff, and I'd hate for it to, like, type in a bunch of text while I'm working in Word. So it's nice to kind of predefine that for yourself a little bit. And so I do have that set. And then there's also this one here that's you can set this as your default scene. And when you do that, what it is when it first turns on, it's going to take you to this default scene when you first start the application. And do remember, I said this in my other video, but you do have to have the application open for this device to work. So you do have to have this thing running in the background. You can see it's up here in my screen right there. That is the icon for it. And this is true in both Mac and Windows. But that default scene here, you can see this is where I have my hide and bring back my dock. This, if I hit this button, you'll see it'll bring up my screenshot dialog for me. This is my display brightness right here. And then I have these other things like expose, so I can go like that from a button. So that's my default one, and it just has some kind of handy things that I use a lot. And then, like I said, I also have these Dorico predefined ones. And just to kind of run you through, for those of you who are watching this for the first time, what I did is I set up one page that lets me go through the different view menus of Dorico. And then in right, I have these buttons here that'll do page view, galley view, as well as this fill view. And so that's kind of a handy feature set. Then on page 2, I have my engraving options as a button, my layout options, I have my notation and layout options. And then under the engrave tab, I have this one here. So if I want to put in a system break really quickly, see, there's my system break command. So I set up those in kind of these different logical ways. And then this is my write command one. So if I'm in the write tab here, now I can go through and I can do things like there's these longer and shorter. And what this is, if you look down here, it's kind of small, I know, but there's that eighth note. So this makes it so these are getting bigger. So under the right menu, see, now it's set to dotted quarter notes, but see now quarter notes, eighth notes, and so I can change that resolution from those little buttons, which I find to be super duper handy to just kind of quickly boop like that, because oftentimes I need to get to those. I also have this button here that takes me through the different parts, so I can just cycle through my parts really quickly, which is really handy when I'm doing part formatting stuff. And then I also have this enharmonic button. So if I want to click on a note and I want it to be, if I click on this note and I want it to be a sharp, see, I can hit this button or that button, and see, it will do that thing where it cycles through the different enharmonic spellings, which is really handy. And then I have this one here that has all those same features, but I programmed in that highlight dynamics. And then we have this new one that I was working on, what I programmed the top note. And one of the things I do know that I'm going to be putting in here a lot is all of these filter commands, because in Dorico I find it really a pain to have to go in and do all of these filters and have to grab all my breaks and all my frame breaks, because why in the world would I have all these hotkeys memorized and have to use all these jump command, filter, ornaments and trills, or markers or key signatures? I mean, the only ones I had predefined were these grab chord symbols ones. You can see I made one for that. But it's just like, why would I have predefined absolute tempos or gradual tempos, which would be retardandos and accelerandos? And so these are the ones that I'm going to be putting in those buttons, in those flow things. And also things like grabbing just gradual dynamics, which is one that I do quite often. So let me show you that one. There's actually another one I think I want to show you, because this one I think is super handy. So you see here that I have this dynamic that's grouped together, and you can see because when I highlight this one, you see how it also highlights the blue dynamic there, which means it's part of a group. And one of the things in Dorico that is good and bad all at the same time is when you change a group dynamic, it kind of changes it for everybody. But sometimes I just want to change one person. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to set up a flow button that's going to go in and it's going to do this. It's going to right click. It's going to go down to dynamics. And then it's going to do this remove from group feature. And this is also available under the right menu. And I believe, let's see, where is it? Remove from group. There we go. So, and then on Mac, this is a great thing. If you want to figure out how to find something in the menus, it's a really handy feature. Now you can see, because this one does not have a predefined hotkey, what I might want to do is see if there's also a jump command for it. So I'm going to hit the J, and I'm going to start typing remove, and you can see, remove dynamic from group. That's what I want to do. And you can see that programmed that in there. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do another flow command for that. So I'm going to go back over here to my settings. Just making sure I'm on the right thing. Yep, okay. And then I'm going to go over here and I'm going to grab one of my flows, and it's going to be an action flow. Put it on this button here, and this is going to be remove group. A little too long, so we'll just go GRP for group. I'm going to go here, and then I'm going to go to my hotkeys. And then again, this first one is going to be my jump command, so I'll put in the J. I'm going to reduce that wait time down from 1,000 milliseconds to 100. Then I'm going to do my text command, which is going to be this. And this is where I'm going to go remove. I got to remember what was that text? Remove dynamic from group. There we go. Okay, remove dynamic from group. Press enter at the end. Gonna change that over. All right, so now I got that button set up. So let's go ahead and try it. So I'm gonna highlight that dynamic, hit the button, boop, and now it's out of the group. And now I can independently adjust this dynamic. Boop. And you can see it's not affecting the ones above. So like I said, this is going to be my 100%. I am going to do this so often in Dorico because I just find it to be amazing. And by the way, that encoder that I did for the longer, shorter, you can see it actually works for other things like dynamics and stuff, because the shift option, that is one of the ones that really works really well. Another one that I think it would be pretty awesome if you find, like me, where you want to move things, you could do one of these encoder knobs for just the arrow keys, which would be, I should say, the option arrow keys, like moving chord symbols, because if you hit option arrow, see, I can move it left and right. And so that might be a good use of an encoder knob. So I still haven't assigned this one yet. So I'm going to go ahead and drag my hotkey down onto this encoder. And this is going to be the move command. And so this is going to be option, counterclockwise. Option left, option right. And so now you can see with that one highlighted, I can click anything that is affected, and now I can move it. And again, that's one of the things I love about this particular device, is because it has those encoder knobs, which some of the Elgato's don't have the encoder knobs. And there are just certain things like zoom. I mean, zoom is great to have a knob for. I mean, yeah, I could hit there sitting hitting a bunch of buttons, but guys, it's just so handy to just be able to turn a knob to do those features. One of the ones I thought about, I don't use Windows as often, but I do use some Windows computers, and I thought to myself, my goodness, how cool would it be if I was to program in a scroll left and right as one of my encoders. Since Windows, like on my Mac, it's really easy to scroll left and right. Because see, if I zoom in, see, I can use this 2-finger scroll on my touchpad, because I use a touchpad, not a mouse. But in Windows, almost all mouses have the scroll wheel, but they don't have a horizontal scroll. And so I thought, man, I could set that encoder knob to be horizontal scroll. And how cool would that be if I didn't already have such an easy way of doing horizontal scrolling? So there's definitely some cool features in there. So anyway, but those are like some of the big things I wanted to just kind of run down here. I'm going to go down here to my mild. Boop. So these were some of like I said, the big, like, handy things that I really felt like were just so cool about this device. And they do make a bigger one. Let me actually show you that on the website, because I had pulled these up. I wanted to show everybody. So here is their website, the Soomfon. And it is a Chinese company, but they, like I said, it seems to work really well, and it seems to have pretty decent support. And under their stream controllers here, you can also see they have this bigger one that's nothing but buttons, and also this little thing on the side where it just would give you some information about, you can see this person has a clock, weather, and then CPU usage. I don't know that I need that, but it's one of those things where just having... This is 15 buttons, and I've been tempted, now that I like this little one that I have, I've been tempted to get this one so that I could just have a page full of those like predefined commands. I just haven't bought one yet, but I just think it's a really cool feature set, and it's not that bad. And then if you go under this space thing here, it takes you to this huge advertisement page about all the settings you can do. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom, then you can get to their little web store thing where you can actually come in here and you can find different option sets. So you can see there are Stream Dock plugins, which is what I'm using here, Stream Dock icons, scenes, animated backgrounds, all these other things. And so there's all these really handy tools. And I haven't really explored too much yet with these alternates here that they have. But this one here that has 6 encoder knobs plus a bunch more buttons, that might be pretty awesome. This is that one I showed you just a moment ago on their website, and this is the one that I actually have. But boy, wouldn't that be great? But you can see here, if you go under the plugins, there's just all of these different applications that people have pre-made. And so there's system monitoring, weather, time, there's Photoshop, Final Cut Pro. This is one that I actually have for my video editing stuff. Cinema 4D, Discord. So people have made a bunch of these, and it's just really handy. Like I said, I'm going to work on getting my Dorico one uploaded to this site, as well as putting it on in the comments of this video so people can download it, just to give themselves a head start on this stuff. But anyway, long story short, pretty darn cool little thing. I think it works pretty darn amazing. And I was actually I wasn't sure. When I bought this, I thought it was just going to be a LARF and just, whatever. It's not that expensive. What the heck, I'll give it a shot. But I'm really enjoying it, and this has really kind of helped me out, and I'm excited to think of other ways of making this work for my productivity. So thanks so much for hanging out with me, guys. Like I said, about every weekend I'm going to be doing one of these live videos. And so if during the week, if you think about a topic you think it would be awesome for me to talk about, please go ahead and throw it in the comments or send me a message, because I'd be happy to do it. Last couple of times I was working on composing, so I was talking about some of my methodology and the ways that I'm doing chords and all this other stuff. But today was kind of a tech talk. So again, thanks so much for hanging out with me, and this video will be up on the channel, so you'll be able to go in and check it out in the future. So if you actually end up getting one of these Stream Decks, you can refer back to this video so you can go through the settings and leave some comments, ask some questions. And like I said, if you want to use my affiliate link, if you're enjoying this device, I just appreciate it, because it just helps keep the channel going. So thanks so much, and I'll talk to you all later.